Ryan. A very busy afternoon to close the business week, filled with some late-breaking stories, including a major Russian investment in BP. The deal announced less than an hour ago. Our Ryan Chilcote is standing by in London with all the details about this share swap between Rosneft and BP. $7.8 billion worth of shares being issued by BP. Right, Ryan?
That's right. This is an extraordinary moment, not just for BP, of course, Britain's oil giant, but also for Rosneft, Russia's largest oil producer, controlled by the Russian state, traded as well here in London. Effectively, what we've got, as you say, is a share swap. BP is going to get a 9.8% stake in Rosneft. Rosneft's going to get about a 5% stake in BP. Just a short while ago, the chairman of BP, Karl-Henrik Svanberg, described what it means to BP.
We have agreed with Rosneft to form a strategic global alliance, where we will combine our skills and our assets of the two companies with the prime purpose to explore the Arctic. We believe that we together can unlock significant value.
All right, the chairman of BP talking about that strategic alliance between BP and the state-controlled oil giant Rosneft. Let's bring in Julie Hyman. Julie's been following the BP deal from the markets desk. Julie, this also specifically has to do with the development of certain properties in the Arctic, in the Kara Sea. BP looking to maybe take advantage of some of those acreages that are held by Rosneft. BP maybe has the expertise, the technology in order to develop that rich Arctic Sea oil and gas reserve. Is this as much about BP needing the money in order to do this, or is it just a way to secure some acres in the Arctic?
Well, it is somewhat about diversification for BP. I mean, they still have an enormous amount of property or rights, if you will, in the Gulf of Mexico, which right now they don't really have access to. And so you have to look elsewhere. And the Arctic is certainly a desirable place to do that. And so, as you said, that's what BP sort of gets out of this, as well as the money. Rosneft gets the expertise, as you say, that BP has. And we've seen this perhaps in other similar deals, not necessarily on the oil side, but in natural resources generally, partnerships between natural resource providers in North America and in the Mideast, for example, where, again, they're trying to tap into some of the technological expertise. And that could be one of the benefits that Rosneft gets in this situation. All
right, I want to bring in Scott Licamele. He is a consultant for emerging markets investment advisory. Scott, are you going to have to get a very big parka now, because you're going to have to take a look at what's going on in the Arctic and potential drilling with a partnership, Rosneft and BP, looking to get more oil and gas out of those very cold waters?
Yes, well, hopefully I won't need the parka because of global warming, but warming things up there. But yeah, this is a major breakthrough, I think, in terms of foreign investment and in terms of technology transfer into the Russian oil sector. The industry has been suffering from relative underinvestment, and I think a lot of that has had to do with uncertainty regarding the current tax regime for Russian upstream operations.
Let me bring in Ryan Chilcote. He's standing by in London, looking at this story. Been following it all day, Ryan. You've also spent a lot of time in Russia. BP has, well, a complicated relationship with Russia. Can you give us a little context?
Yeah, a complicated relationship really personified by Mr. Bob Dudley himself. Keep in mind, Bob Dudley was the CEO of TNK-BP. What's that? That's BP's joint venture in Russia. It has a 50% stake in it, and BP relies on that joint venture for more than 25% of its output. Well, 3 years ago, Bob Dudley, then the CEO of that joint venture, was running the company. There was a conflict with its Russian partners and the Russian government, and Mr. Dudley was effectively run out of town. BP at the time said that he was subjected to severe harassment and there was no other choice. The spat was formally about the direction, the strategic direction of TNK-BP. BP. Well, fast forward, and when Mr. Dudley was announced as the CEO of BP, the group, he was welcomed with open arms in Russia, not just by those Russian billionaire partners, but also by the Russian government. Off camera, a lot of Russians told me, look, what happened with Mr. Dudley back then was nothing personal. It was business. Primarily, the business was that BP wanted to really develop use TNK to develop things going on in Russia. TNK BP wanted to get out of Russia and expand internationally. Just over the last 2 days, Mr. Dudley, still at it, was in Moscow, met with the Prime Minister Vladimir Putin, and presumably, now that we know all of this, he obviously won his support, which Mr. Putin has already expressed for the deal, but they obviously were inking this and probably raised glasses.
Well, Ryan, do you get a deal done in Russia of this magnitude without the support of Vladimir Putin?
Absolutely not. Rosneft is a state-controlled oil company. It's Russia's largest oil company. Oil is something that Russia looks at from a strategic perspective. This is something that what is taking place today, this alliance, this share swap between BP and Rosneft, is something that the Russian government would very, very much welcomes. It is very keen on getting access to international oil markets, having a partnership with a reputable, authoritative partner that like BP is, albeit even after the spill, certainly internationally and in Russia, BP has a very good name. So this is a big moment for Russia to say to the world, we're with you, we are part of the international community. And for BP, of course, it's about those Arctic reserves. They can now get at them.
Ryan, you were just talking about TNK BP. And Scott, something that we've been trying to sort of figure out here, get to the bottom of, just quickly here, what effect does this new partnership have on the TNK BP partnership? Does it risk angering those Russian billionaires again?
No, I think that given the fact that, you know, as was mentioned, Rosneft is controlled by the Russian government, and the fact that this has the blessing and was basically put together by Putin and company, I don't think that there will be, shall I say, any lashback by any of the Russian oligarchs who have oil interests in Russia. I think that they're probably fully on board with this, as it's important. I think more importantly, again, getting back to the tax regime issue, if they announce a specific tax break for the projects that they're going to be performing and doing in the Arctic region of Russia, I think that if it's not a one-off,
we've got to leave it there. I want to thank you very much, Scott Licamele, coming to us from Emerging Markets Investment Advisory, Ryan Chilcote in London.